Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into something we literally pass by every single day, probably without giving it a second thought. But did you know that the everyday bus is actually this amazing physical manifestation of a region's culture, its history, and its urban design? It's true. So we're going to look really closely at these giants of the road and decode the incredible engineering stories they're telling us.
Right off the bat, let's just look at the most obvious visual contrast here. Your classic American bus looks a lot like a heavy truck, right? It's got that massive, prominent long hood. Meanwhile, a standard European bus features a totally flat, compact face. Absolutely no nose whatsoever. And listen, this isn't just some random styling choice. It's actually the direct result of decades of very different cultural, urban, and engineering environments. Which brings us to Section 1, America's heavyweight champions, space, safety, and the long nose. Okay, so let's start our tour in the United States. North America is pretty much defined by its sprawling infrastructure, and that gives manufacturers like Bluebird and Thomas the sheer freedom to build massive front-engine behemoths. And that signature long nose, it isn't just there to look tough. It is a highly deliberate safety feature. In a head-on collision, that huge hood basically acts as a crumple zone, absorbing all that destructive energy way before it ever reaches the driver or the passengers. Plus, there's a huge practical perk here. Mechanics can just pop that hood open to work on the engine without having to crawl completely underneath this incredibly heavy vehicle. It saves a ton of maintenance downtime. And honestly, nothing screams American transit quite like the classic yellow school bus, right? It perfectly illustrates this design philosophy. I mean, this vehicle has stayed largely unchanged for nearly a century because it is built around one singular priority, and that is absolute safety. The elevated height, that's specifically engineered to prevent children or smaller cars from getting trapped underneath in an accident. The bright yellow color is obviously designed for maximum visibility no matter the weather, and legally, this thing is a national priority, backed up by super strict traffic laws that require all surrounding cars to stop completely when students are loading or unloading. Now, to understand why the US can build them like actual tanks, we gotta look at the rules of the road. There is a stark difference in legal weight limits. In the US, regulations allow buses to weigh up to 36,000 kilograms. That is largely because American highways are famously wide, straight, and built to handle super heavy machines. Over in Europe, though, they cap this at a much lighter 25,000 kilograms. So this massive weight allowance in the States is exactly what enables manufacturers to build these incredibly strong, spacious, and powerful vehicles with far fewer restrictions than anywhere else in the world. Just to put that 36,000 kilograms into perspective, we are talking about 80,000 pounds. That is roughly the weight of 6 adult elephants. Hauling that kind of sheer mass across the vast open distances of the American interstate system, well, it requires something pretty special under the hood. That's why you'll find these buses equipped with giant torque-heavy diesel engines from makers like Cummins or Detroit Diesel. They are built to easily run for hundreds of thousands, sometimes even over 1 million miles, though, they are notoriously heavier and definitely less fuel efficient.
All right, moving to Section 2, Europe's nimble navigators. Density, efficiency, and tight corners.
So imagine taking that 80,000-pound American behemoth we just talked about and trying to squeeze it down some medieval street in Europe. Total gridlock, right? Because European space is incredibly scarce and the streets are older, narrower, and just way more congested, engineers basically had to rethink the entire architecture of the bus. The biggest change? They moved the engine from the front all the way to the back. This rear engine layout does 3 brilliant things. It maximizes passenger space, it pushes the engine noise far behind the driver for a much quieter ride, and crucially, by ditching that bulky front nose, the bus can make the incredibly tight turns required in crowded city centers.
And this difference in size, it builds into an entirely different philosophy on power. While the US relies on massive torque and big diesel to conquer those long highways, Europe took a totally different path. Driven by really strict environmental regulations in cities like Amsterdam, Oslo, and Berlin, European manufacturers focused on smaller, highly efficient turbodiesels. Furthermore, they are rapidly transitioning away from internal combustion altogether. This push is making Europe a global leader in sustainable transit, thanks to their rapid adoption of highly efficient hybrid and fully electric engines. Now, when faced with the ultimate urban space challenge, the United Kingdom solved it brilliantly. London's streets are just notoriously tight and busy. Making a bus longer to fit more people would just create massive traffic jams. So what was their solution? Go up.
The iconic red double-decker bus uses vertical space instead of length. It keeps the vehicle's footprint wonderfully compact on the road while still maintaining a massive capacity. I mean, these things easily carry up to 80 passengers without making city traffic any worse than it already is.
And these cultural priorities extend right down to the inside of the bus, to where you sit, or more accurately, stand. Americans absolutely expect a seat, whether it's the 40 to 50 seats on a school bus or up to 60 seats on a long-haul Greyhound. The sheer distances of U.S. travel demand seated comfort. But look at a typical European city bus layout, only 20 to 30 seats. Why? Because European transit heavily prioritizes vast standing room. Their public transport networks are dense, and the trips are typically just short, frequent urban hops, where maximum passenger turnover is the ultimate goal.
But wait, what if a European city really does need to move an enormous amount of people on a single level without breaking those strict local vehicle length limits? Well, European engineers got creative and fully embraced the articulated bus. A lot of us know it as the accordion bus. This is a flexible vehicle that can reach up to 18 meters, so nearly 60 feet in length. Because it literally bends right in the middle, it can elegantly snake through the narrow streets of cities like Berlin, Stockholm, or Milan. It perfectly matches the high passenger capacity of a full-length American bus while still totally respecting Europe's tight urban dimensions. Let's look eastward in Section 3, Asia's high-tech transit, technology, punctuality, and integration. Heading east, Asia brings its own highly distinct, almost futuristic transit philosophy to the table. In places like Japan and South Korea, urban density is at such an extreme premium that cities simply cannot afford to have large, cumbersome vehicles clogging up the streets. So they rely on ultra-compact designs. But what's truly mind-blowing here is the integration. In Tokyo, for example, electric bus fleets are digitally synchronized directly with train and subway schedules to completely minimize passenger wait times. Added advanced automation, seamless digital payment systems, and China's massive electric revolution led by brands like BYD, and you've got a system completely tailored for a high-density, high-tech population. So, seeing all of this kind of begs an inevitable question. Looking at the heavy, robust American cruiser, the nimble and space-efficient European transit, and this hyper-integrated, high-tech Asian fleet, which style is actually the best? Which brings us to Section 4. Form follows culture. Brilliant solutions to local challenges. Well, spoiler alert, there is absolutely no perfect universal model. There are only flawless adaptations to the specific environment at hand. A giant front-engine American bus is a symbol of regional independence, right? It has the massive capacity and durability required to cross the wide, open plains of Texas. It's perfect for its home turf. But take that exact same amazing machine and drop it into the ancient, cramped corridors of Rome or Kyoto, and it would be utterly useless. Those environments strictly demand a compact, highly maneuverable, and quiet transit solution. And that is what makes this whole explainer so fascinating to me. And what I really hope you take away from this today, these aren't just vehicles, they're mirrors. These everyday machines are actually rolling blueprints of the very cities they serve. They reflect the history of a nation's infrastructure, the tightness of their urban planning, the strictness of their environmental laws, and their fundamental cultural philosophy regarding how humans should interact with mobility and with each other. Ultimately, it all boils down to this. There's no perfect model, only brilliant solutions to the same challenge. We've seen how the US builds for wide-open safety, Europe for dense spatial efficiency, and Asia for high-tech integration. So here's a thought I want to leave you with. The next time you step onto your local bus, take a quick look around and ask yourself, what does this rolling blueprint reveal about the way your society is built? Because, as we've seen, every continent has inspired its own completely unique story on wheels. Thanks for joining me on this one.